Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Christy Taylor. I am so excited because we are officially kicking off the prescription for career success. I would say this is a book launch, but this is a full-blown weekend. We're going to start with the kickoff because 15 authors, we had a best-selling book, The Prescription for Career Success, and we're moving right into our conference. And so I just wanted to kind of start off by introducing myself, what was the motive behind this, what it was like to collaborate with all of these authors. And then over the next hour and a half, we're going to have some awesome people come in who collaborated on this book. They're going to be sharing their stories. We're going to be celebrating each other, hyping each other up. One of my friends, she had a launch parade, and that kind of, really inspired me to do something similar. But back in November of last year, we put out a call for coaches and speakers and authors to come together, and I was going to launch the signature, what will become the signature conference for Work Solutions. Because if you know how we like to spell Work Solutions, WORXK, right? We like to say that we are the prescription for change, the prescription for career success. We like to work with people who are impact. And who would have thought that we were living in such a time where stuff was going to be so relevant. And so here we are, we were preparing for the conference, and right in the middle of that, sometime around, I believe, February, March, I said, hey, we need to write a book. I was like, I'm going to write this book myself called The Prescription for Career Success. And then I asked these amazing speakers and authors, like, hey, would you be interested in collaborating with a book together? And, 15 folks came on board, and everybody contributed a chapter. And now we have the new book series, The Prescription for Career Success, Volume 1, Elevate Your Mindset, Transform Your Career. I'm excited to say that book is officially available as of yesterday as an ebook. The pre-orders, we are all now #1 best-selling authors. And the pre-orders were officially open, and the pre-orders are also open for the paperback book, which comes available on April 30th. And then we're gonna kick this off tonight, and then this weekend we want you to join us, the 26th and the 27th, from 10 to approximately 4 each day. I have amazing 18 speakers coming in to speak life into you. We have we're going to focus on mindset. We're going to focus on leadership and navigating the challenges in your career. We'll have the career coach's hot seat. Myself and another resident coach, we're going to be there serving as your host, supporting you and cheering all of these awesome speakers on. Tickets are absolutely free. It's just going to be a great week of uplifting, resetting your mind, and getting you prepared for the next step. And with that, I am excited to jump into this and introduce our first round of authors. We have Colonel Paul Lawrence Vann, Mr. Earl Morrison, and Kenchan Brawani. I hope I got that right. I keep always asking you, right? And so this book, The Prescription for Career Success, is divided into 3 different sections. And so I want to say the name of the chapters, and I'm going to go let each of these authors, as we continue to celebrate each other tonight, just talk about what inspired them to write their chapters, and share a little bit of their story in about 2 to 3 minutes each, and then we'll just continue celebrating each other. So here, I opened the book up, and then we have Colonel Paul Lawrence, who wrote the chapter, Enhance Your Personal Leadership Skills to Elevate Your Career, where he shares a little bit about his story and journey into being a fellow veteran. And then we also have The Creative Edge. She wrote chapter 5, Kenchan, How Thinking Differently Can Propel Your Career. And we have Earl Morrison, who is going to share a little bit about his chapter. Actually, he was chapter 3, Mentoring for Life, a journey of growth, leadership, and resilience. So here we go. Let's do the roundtables. Let's celebrate these awesome authors and our achievement of being #1 bestseller. So we're going to start with Paul. Tell a little about your story, what inspired you to write your chapter, and then we'll go around the room.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Taylor. And I'm honored to say that really what inspired me was the fact that you came in and you provided this amazing platform to do so. But when I talk about personal leadership, it really is all about the fact that you cannot lead anyone else until you can lead yourself first. And that's really the inspiration for what I'm talking about. I'll give you a little bit of background as far as I'm concerned. I've been working since the age of 10. Fast forward, I made it out of college in ROTC and went to the Air Force and spent 22 years there. And even though my functional area was finance, budgeting, acquisition programs, a billion-dollar program, leadership was the core value of which I was a part of. And I know that if you cannot lead yourself, you cannot lead others. And when I look at writing this particular chapter, it's all about setting a goal to become better at personal leadership, then to be disciplined in that process, and then being adaptable, because we know the workforce today is all about being adaptable. And when we talk about self-leadership, some of the things that we want to look at is emotional intelligence. People have to have that. They have to have empathy. They have to have understanding. It's a lot different than what it was 10, 15 years ago. And then they also have to have that aspect of being able to move forward through the organization. Once we finish self-leadership, then we can move into leading people in professional leadership. And there are a lot of people who have do really great at what they do, but they don't know how to lead. And what this particular chapter, it gives them a blueprint to help them to move forward and to do great things. I lead Wealth Building Academy LLC. It's a leadership consultancy. And primarily what I do is work with C-suite leaders to help them to develop other leaders within the organization. And I'm honored to have been a part of this amazing book. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's so hard for me to just say, Paul, I'm trying. But, that military part of me will always honor and respect your service. And, I think when I was on your podcast, I went on a whole tangent about my respect and commitment for military leaders. So thank you so much, Paul. So, Earl, you wrote chapter 3 of the book. You're going to be a part of the summit this weekend. And I had an opportunity to interview you and Kenton for the magazine. So I want to you share a little bit about your story, what inspired you to write your chapter, and let's continue to celebrate these awesome authors.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to collaborate with you guys. Following Mr. Van, I always tell people that everybody's at least a leader of one. And a lot of people don't understand that. And out here in this world, I think we failed a lot of getting people to realize that if you're going to lead other people, the first person you have to figure out how to lead is yourself. And I think a lot of times we miss that, especially when we're in these places that we're supposed to be developing leaders. And so one of the things that helped me along the way was a mentor. And I don't think we put enough emphasis on that in our organizations and our groups of understanding how important a mentor is to our culture, to our environments, to our organizations. And so several years ago, I did my master's thesis on mentoring, and I've been in law enforcement for the last 25 plus years, and it was designed in that. But then I wrote a book about mentoring for life, and it's about teaching how to be a mentor, how to bring a mentoring program into your organization. So this chapter just kind of highlights that and the importance of it, because again, I think it's so simple that, a lot of times the simple stuff is what we miss. And so understanding that we need other people to help us, which is hard for some of us because the ego gets in the way. And so we put up our walls and we miss things that we should. And so just trying to get people to understand is that the things that we go through, someone else has probably gone through it. And if I can find someone that can help me process that, what a better way to do that than mentoring and being available to that. And so, this is going on my 8th year to have my business. It's Leading and Learning with Character. And what we do is we teach online and in-person leadership development. And I do mentoring on the side just to help people understand that you don't have to figure it out by yourself. Which is what we're doing, right?
Right. I mean, that was the whole point of the book collaboration. Like I said, I've written books before, but I just said, if anybody has read my book, I do not like to write a long-winded book. It's not going to be 500 pages, right? I'm kind of like that military person, like get to the point, give me a bloof, right? Here's what you need. Take it and let's move on, right? And so I was like, man, there's no way there's so many people out there that have so much wisdom to share. Kenji, you had a really unique story because I remember it because it's like, boom, it's from like the fashion industry, right? Yeah. And so I want you to tell us a little bit about what inspired you to write your chapter and, a little bit about your personal story and your business.
Sure. Okay, so what inspired me to write this chapter was the realization that so many people underestimate the power of creativity, not just in art or design, but as a mindset that can actually be a game changer for your career. And I wanted to share my journey in the off price fashion world to show how thinking differently and embracing challenges and staying resourceful can lead to a big success. Now, a lot of people are not familiar with my industry, off price fashion. That's basically, in short, in a very simple terms, the off price fashion industry is about making branded clothing accessible at much lower prices in the market, basically. Like when you go to the big stores like the Ross, the Burlington, and those stores, sometimes you find branded stuff at a lot lower price, and you question that how is that possible that this is a lot cheaper than what's in the stores. So that business model is basically people like me, like our company. We source the surplus from those brands and we bring it in, we resell to the stores. Now, many people find that to be like a very strange type of business model, but like, I mean, it's where I come in to say that when you get creative, there's a lot of doors that you can open. Because,
Yeah.
yeah, because I also come from a background where I had to build everything from scratch, and I've learned that innovation is just not about big ideas, but it's about seeing values where others don't.
Absolutely love that. What I love is the inspiration behind the stories we share. I mean, just in the first, we didn't even let me tell you guys, because we have this is not everybody here who wrote a chapter, because Paul and Earl wrote chapters 1 and 2. We have Dr. Greg Stewart, who talks about emotional intelligence that is only powerful if you can see it. And then we have you, Kenshin, who talks about that creative edge. So in those 5 chapters, just part 1 of the book, we're talking about everything from leading yourself. I'm giving advice on the course, because I'm putting it together. So my opening chapter is really just about, your career and your mindset. And then, so just in 5 chapters, you learn about mentoring, self-leadership, creativity, and innovation, right?
Yeah.
My question to you guys is that I'm going to do a quick around the room. We'll do a couple of more questions, and then we're going to transition to the next group of powerful speakers as I see them starting to come in. When you talk about the title of this book, Elevate Your Mindset, Transform Your Career, I want each of you in 60 seconds or less to go around. If you're listening and you're going to be joining us tonight, you're going to get the same question. All right. In 60 seconds or less, I want you to tell me a quick story of where, you had to elevate your mindset to elevate your career, to get to the next level. And it could be something positive. It could be something that you went through or experienced. But I know with me, one of the reasons why I do the work that I do, and I'm inspired to do this, tell people like you have to be the prescription for change, the prescription for success, because I was so stuck on the trajectory that I thought that life should go. And boy, when it didn't go that way, I completely fell apart and fell to shambles. That's what I feel like, right? And when I found myself, and this is the truth, I really just started talking about this, but when I found myself, Dr. Christy Taylor, distinguished doctor, military, on a therapist couch trying to figure out what went wrong, she was like, Christy, you literally worked yourself to death, and you really, you know what I mean? And I said, I can never allow this to happen again. And so that is why I'm so passionate about the work to do, because sometimes we reach a turning point in our career and you have to just accept like, hey, this is not going this, and I'm going to follow the path that's laid out for me. And ever since I did that, it has just been so phenomenal. So Paul, I just want to start with you. Share a quick story of, how you had to change your mindset to transform your career.
A great question, and thank you for asking. And one of the things that I experienced was 1 year, I used to jog from the Pentagon to Capitol Hill each day, 4 miles up, 4 back to stay in conditioning. But one day I was up there and something just came to my mind that you're going to be working here one day, and I couldn't figure it out. I go back to my office 2 weeks later, all of a sudden there's an application for military officers to apply to work on Capitol Hill. So I applied the first year, and my supervisor didn't want me to go there. So he took my paperwork and gave it to one of the coworkers, and he ended up going. But I didn't give up. I switched organizations. I applied the following year, and I ended up working on Capitol Hill for a member of Congress who was in the House Armed Services Committee. I could have easily given up, But I transitioned, I tweaked some things, and it helped me with one of my realizations to work on Capitol Hill to not only serve with the Air Force, but support all the military services. And I drafted language for bills that went into law. And that's one of my dreams. I always wanted to do something that made a difference for all people. And that was one of them. And I had to overcome a situation in order for that to happen.
Do you know the level of I don't know the levels of brag that I have that I wrote? Got to collaborate on a book with a military colonel. Okay, that is going to be, I wrote a book with a colonel for the rest of levels of brag. But one of the things I just want to point out to you guys, as we each are sharing these stories, is that when we talk about transforming your mindset and transforming your career, listen, you're going to do this 1,000 times in your career. There'll be 1,000 times that you will transform, that you reach a challenge. You have to transform your mindset to get to the next level, elevate your mindset to get to the next level in your career. So Earl, what about you? Share a story with us about how you had to elevate.
So, back when I was talking about starting this business, so my ultimate dream was to become a police chief. I achieved that back in 2014. When you reach that pinnacle, you think you're going to be there for a long time, right? You think, I've made it. We were in a great place. 2.5 years in, the political landscape changed completely on me, and I didn't have my dream job anymore. So I've got choices to make. Do I just give up? Because a lot of people would say, well, man, what are you going to do next? Do you just curl up in a ball? And so, in that process, my wife and I are talking, and everybody always says, I want to write a book, and then all of a sudden my wife says, well, why don't you write a book about what you've learned and share that with other people? And I'm like, okay, well, I don't have any excuses because I got time on my hands, right? And so I wrote my first book, Leadership Lessons Learned, and it taught me, again, how to elevate that mindset, because a lot of people would say, well, that's a failure. Well, here's the crazy thing. So a year later, it happened to me again. A year after that, I got another job, and I stayed there for 3 years, and it happened again. So 3 years, 3 different jobs. I've got to that pinnacle. So you have to keep elevating your mindset, because if you don't, what you find yourself in, it could be adversity, but adversity doesn't live on unless you let it. So you have to keep elevating your mindset to get through whatever you're going through. Even if it's great, you still have to elevate your mindset to stay there. So that's why I talk so much about the mindset and the mentoring aspect and bringing all that together, because that's what allows me, you go and you listen to people. This is the best example I can give people for everybody to understand. You go to church and you listen to a sermon, and sometimes you're like, man, that hits me hard. And sometimes you're sitting there thinking, does that guy or girl up there even understand? Have they been through anything like me? Because I'm human, right? And so for me, when I'm teaching people, I can say, you know what? I've been through this. You can elevate your mindset, and you can get to what's next if you allow yourself to do that. But you got to get help. You can't try to do it by yourself. You got to surround yourself with the right kind of people to help you elevate that mindset.
I love it. I got so many books on mindset. I was the titles was running together. I think my prayer works, transforming mindset, transforming. I got a book on prayer. So you know what I mean. So hey, what I love about this and having an opportunity to collaborate with you guys, and y'all, we ain't done. We're doing this kickoff event tonight. Then they're going to be joining me on the Prescription for Career Success podcast. So we're not done. I love the idea of working with people and creating synergy. Kenji, tell me about that. Elevate your mindset, transform your career story.
All right. So in my case, I had to change my mindset from playing it safe to embracing possibility, even though it came with a little bit of a risk. Like an example that I could say is, it's very common in the fashion industry here, in the clothing stores as well. Where do they import from? China, Vietnam. You'll always see the clothing made in China, made in Vietnam. It's very common to do it from there, right? To import from there into United States. What completely changed the game for me is when I started thinking that, hey, you know what? Which markets are untapped for now? And I noticed that the like my peers in the industry, they don't like to step into markets which they just hear the noise that basically it's dangerous, it's scary, whatever. Like I'll give you an example. It's like Ethiopia and Pakistan. Nobody was looking at that market at all. And they produce for some of the most beautiful brands, like the Eddie Bauer that you see in stores, for Macy's stores. They did major production, but nobody like me was tapping into that market. So I chose to be like, you know what? I want to tap into it because I'd rather be the first and I'd rather take that chance than listening to the noise that won't get me anywhere. This will open doors for me, and that's what I chose to go for that, and just to kind of shut the noise, do my own filtering of who's good to deal with over there and who's not. And it opened up massive doors for me, and some of the prominent vendors and factories, manufacturers, are dealing with me till today, and that's kind of become our regular supply from them, and we kind of excel at that because nobody was tapping into that market, so we already broke into it first.
I love that. I love that each of you were able to share a story about a turning point. And think about it, guys. We're about to get ready to bring on this next group of folks. But so if you're listening, make sure you log in. All right. So if you're ready to bring on this next group. But I mean, what I love is that, you know, we're not, when we're telling these stories, we're sharing our humanness, right? Our humanity, about how we had to go out there and just take a shot on life. Look, I fail every day. I've done 1,000 things right. I've done 10,000 things wrong. I fail every day, and so I love this idea of creating synergy with other people and just getting people to be real and raw. So when you purchase this book, or whether you download the book, or however when you read these stories, these are people's real lives. None of us have. This is not a facade, and I just love the idea of sharing some things that have really happened to us that got us to where we are. Now, Paul, you and I, we are part of that Mega Global Coaches Network. There's some other things that we'll continue to collaborate on. But I, and then Earl and Kenji, you guys are going to be part of the Prescription for Career Success Summit this weekend. But as we get ready to transition to our next round of speakers, we still got a few minutes here. So what I want you to do is I want you to, my last question, and that you have to answer it quick. Give us a piece of advice to tell folks how to write their prescription for career success. And then also tell us what you got coming up next. So plug away, shameless plug. But give us that advice to help folks write their prescription for career success related to elevating your mindset, transforming your career.
Okay, you want me to start?
Yeah. Paul.
Okay. Yes. What I would tell people is to know what your purpose is. Know who you are, first of all, especially in today's economy. And if you know who you are, then you're going to be just fine. And don't change who you are. We have to work from an internal standpoint, even though we have a lot of external forces that are trying to really make us make changes. But we need to just work on ourselves even more. And then what I'm working on right now, I have a few things coming up with motivational speaker Les Brown that I'm going to be doing a little bit of work with him here in the future, and some other different platforms that I'll be on. But when it comes down to the mindset, I'm ready for it. This is my hour. This is my time. This is Earl's time. This is Ken Chan's time, Dr. Taylor's time, for all of us to focus on ourselves and don't change anything about us. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here right now.
Yes, every piece of you that makes, in every experience you've been through, that makes up the stories that we, that really makes up the story that got you to where you are today. What about you, Earl? Tell us about your prescription for career success, and tell us what's happening and going on, besides the fact that Earl's going to be speaking this weekend at the Prescription for Career Success Summit.
I would tell people to just, take a chance. Don't stay in the rut that you're in. You're going to face adversity. You're going to fail, just as Dr. Taylor has said, just like we've talked about. Get up out of that. Don't be a victim, and don't take that the wrong way. Just understand this: we can have the woes, or we can have the goes. And I would rather have let's get up and go and achieve something. Get help, talk to people. Other people have been through the same thing. So as you're figuring out who you are, you reach for that purpose, get help to do that. I recently, right before we started this project, I just published my latest book, Closing the Gap. It's called Closing the Gap by Building Bridges for Organizational and Personal Success. I've created a curriculum for that as well. So I have that online, and I will do that in person. So that's kind of what we have going right now.
Thank you. look, look, it's just so much. I'm just getting to listen to y'all talk, but it's just, Kanjan, what do you have? Well, tell us about, because you're all about just jumping and taking a risk, right? Tell us about your prescription for career success, that final piece of advice that you want to offer to the audience, and what do you have coming up next?
Well, I feel my suggestion, my prescription for success is you rewrite the rules when they don't fit your story.
I love that. I love
And I mean, let your creativity be your fuel. And of course, one thing that's most important for me is I believe in my legacy being the impact that I leave. Because no matter what we do, all of us do, whether we're from different professions, like there is some sort of impact that we leave when it comes to other people, you know? So that's what I believe in. Yes.
Hey, listen, literally my business is being the prescription for change. I read an article today, which I got to counter that because somebody said social impact is dead. It's absolutely not,
Yeah.
right? You, the person that you are, you can choose to be a person of change. You can choose to make that difference. And sometimes it's just us doing stuff like this, just coming together, creating that synergy to let other people know that there are real people out here with real stories. Things are happening every day. Impossible, but things are happening every day. And I like Myron Golden. He says work is working for you or working on you. I don't know if you've ever heard that, business coach, but the energy that we put out is what we get back, even if it don't seem like it at times, again. So we're going to drop the prescription for career success summit. We've already shared the book link, but we're going to also continue to make sure that we plug you guys. What I'm going to tell you to do, we have each person, we have interacted with them in some way through one of our platforms, whether it's Work Global News, whether they're part of the summit this weekend. I'm going to tell you to check out the Work Global News site, because we have articles about each one of these awesome people on there, information on there. We've all connected in some way. So we're excited. Thank you guys for being a part of this project. It won't be the last time we connect. You're going to come on. You're going to be on with us this summer, sharing more advice on the prescription for career success. And we can help people get an update on where you are, what you're doing, and what you got going on for the rest of the year. So again, thank you guys. And thank you for being a part of the project. And we look forward to continued collaboration. I'll see you this weekend.
See you.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Have a good day, everyone.
You're welcome. Guys, so this has been, like I said, an exciting kickoff. If you are tuning in and you're part of the next group of speakers, we're going to have you to jump in. And while we want to wait on our next group of speakers to arrive, I just want to say that, think about it. I, back in November of last year, decided I was going to just launch this event. And this was going to be part of our core event. And if you looked at the events that we did last year as a part of the Work Solutions brand, we did so many events, whether it was focused on career, whether it was focused on DEI, workplace resiliency, mindset. We threw a summit. Just last year alone, just by stepping out on faith, I had an opportunity to work with over 70 different speakers. And I'm a career coach, and that was definitely not what the intention was when we stepped out on faith and we decided to do this. But over the last few months, we've had an opportunity to grow. We've connected with some awesome people. And now we have this prescription for career success summit. So I'm actually going to get ready. I don't see too many people in the queue, but I'm going to get ready to bring on one of our authors, and we'll just start having, as people come in, we'll start introducing. So I have one of the authors with me right now, Mr. Anthony Lane, another fellow military veteran who I had an opportunity to meet at a workshop. And I just said, hey, Anthony, come on, jump in this with me. Let's be a part of this process. Let's build and collaborate. And we did. So, Anthony, we just wrapped up part 2. Can you hear me? We just
Yes,
wrapped
I can
up
hear you. I can hear you.
We're waiting for people to jump in. Well, they may or may not, but as folks come in, we'll continue to celebrate and just talk about this experience. So, Anthony, I just want you to talk a little bit about you've recently just transitioned into coaching, and I know that you're Maxwell certified. You are a co-author, now a #1 best-selling author, part of the prescription for career success. Elevate your mindset, transform your career. And so, since we got a little extra time, I actually want you to share your story. What inspired you? Again, another fellow military veteran, so I have a special place in my heart. What inspired you to open your business? Tell us a little bit about what inspired you, and then we're going to talk about your chapter in the book.
Well, thank you so much for having me on and being a co-author in the book. one of the main things that inspired me to really give back in a coaching format, in a coaching way, um, was being in the military. I, I apologize. I'm at another workshop right now here in DC. So, one of the main things that really inspired me was to, or not was, but is, um, being in the military. We had, the rules and so many things that was really giving back to the military and serving our country and everything else. We really didn't take the time for ourselves, and a lot of people do not know how to really take care of themselves. And so, my mission right now is to really work with individuals for them to learn who they really are, because it took me a while to figure out who I am, what I wanted, besides going from my family, my parents' rules to the military rules and regulations, and for me to really work on myself. And so I'm working with individuals so they can really learn and know who they really are.
It's a journey, right? And I think I want to
It
talk a
is.
little bit about uh, it's a journey itself. I'm assuming that you're probably at that Armed Forces Partnership for the Arts Workshop. I don't know if you had a chance to go, because that's where we initially met. I did see that they were doing a full-blown story about it. So, I think let's just talk about, because I do have some people who are coming to my workshops, people who are in transition now, a lot of people who are veterans who are, in transition, trying to find their way. This has been, like, for me, the military has been half of my life. I got out for 6 years, but it never got out of me, right? Because once you're in, you're kind of in, right? So I want to talk a little bit about that. We actually have another person joining us, Julie. I'll add her. So I want you to talk about that transition. Then we're going to jump into your chapter of the book. When you talk about that transition and finding your next step, why do you think that so many of us, even as military veterans, just need that extra support?
Well, because in the military, you have the structure, you have that discipline, you have the discipline, but you don't have the self-discipline. We're told when to wake up, we're told when to go to sleep, we're told when to eat, we're told when to do so many different things. And so when we're getting out and we're trying to find that voice for ourselves, and sometimes it's a little bit difficult. And someone like me, I left straight out of high school, and came right into the military. Someone else, I know people that left out of college and join the military, and then they eventually get out. And so we're trying to find out, trying to find our voice and what is the perfect thing for us. Might not be perfect or the right thing for us sometimes, and that is a struggle.
Talk a little bit about your chapter. You know what I mean? So you in your chapter, so again, Prescription for Career Success, 19 chapters. Anthony's chapter is Emotional Mastery, your catalyst for career and life transformation. Talk to me about what inspired you to write this chapter.
The biggest thing that's in my chapter is talking about anxiety. So many people have anxiety and don't know how to deal with anxiety, how to work through it. And the biggest thing for me, I remember when I left the military, I'm on a podium, I'm getting ready to give a speech and talk, and then I just start freaking out. Everything that I practiced, I planned, and everything I had in my mind, it just all went out the window. But then I remember I had to calm down, and I just counted down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in my own head and regain composure, and then everything start working out fine. And that whole chapter about emotional mastery is really my whole career has been about ups and downs and ins and out on how to really gain control of who I am and what I am and how to move forward. And so that chapter really inspired me. Just that writing really inspired me to really give back. And I have some practical exercises in there also that can help individuals work through their anxiety when they're going through it. And sometimes you can get up and walk away, and sometimes you cannot get up and walk away. And so, how do you deal with it? One of the main things I put in the book is to get out of your head and to really move forward. And so that was my main inspiration, was my life and the other individuals' life that are around me when they're dealing with anxiety.
Listen, and this is why I say a book like this is so important to have so many different perspectives. I want to introduce someone who has been a joy to collaborate with. She just joined us early. Thank you, Julie Duncan. for joining us early, because this isn't a jumping bit. This is about celebrating you guys and the work that was done. Again, we walked into this just in faith, walked out #1 best-selling authors, and that was something I have not achieved since 2019, right? I've put a bunch of books out, but I mean, it just shows the power of collaboration, just the simple belief that we can do something, we can get something done. Julie, as more people start to come in and flow, I want to make sure we introduce you. Julie's the founder of Empowering Life Coaching. Julie, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I'm gonna jump into some questions with Julie, and then we'll go back and forth with Julie and Andy. And again, as other people come in, we'll continue the conversation. Tell us about your business, Julie. What inspired you to become a coach? What is happening? What is taking place? And then we're going to talk about your chapter.
Oh my gosh, Dr. Taylor, I am so delighted to be here. Thank you for putting all this together. So my journey really begins. Let me talk for a minute about the rationale for my chapter, because that's really my journey into life coaching. So at age 17, I had two pivotal things happen in my life that gave me a crash course. I was actually on a collision with resiliency that I had no idea, because at age 17, what did I know, right? But knock on my door, 2:00 in the morning, to a police officer who announced to my mother and I that my brother was 17, he was 21, he was Air Forceman, home on leave, was killed in a triple fatality car accident, which was, okay, yeah, grief, like so encompassing. Well, okay, so that was my senior year. So then about 3 months later, I had no plan B, and I'm sitting in front of my guidance counselor. I'm like, okay, give me my application for college. And he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. And I'm like, what? What do you mean you're not going to do that? And he's like, you are not college material. You need to work at Burger King. And I had no plan B. I have big FOMO. All my friends had plans, and I was not going to stay in the small town. I love my small town, but I wasn't going to do it. So what happened was, without me even knowing at the age of 17, resiliency became my only option. So fast forward, when I talk about the 5 pillars of resiliency in the chapter, they are organic, raw, real, because I live them. So the 5 pillars of courage, facing rejection, understanding that failure is not fatal, harnessing rejection, harnessing resiliency, that we all need to do in life. Energy and mindset are pivotal to one's success in life, right? And they certainly are pivotal in my success. And then as I became a life coach, the word resiliency just kept coming up, and courage. I thought, oh my gosh. So when you and I spoke, I said, I know exactly what I want to write about, because it's so important and we don't talk about it enough. And many times we don't think about the resiliency that we're building along the way. But if you face adversity in life and you keep going, you have built resiliency. So that was the impetus for writing the chapter. And that was a big impetus for me moving forward in my coaching business, because resiliency is at the helm of who I've been my whole life.
Listen, so we take them in the very beginning, the very first sections of this book, where we're talking about mindset, the importance of mentoring, and literally all 3 sections, have a particular focus. Anthony, yours is emotional mastery, the catalyst for career and life transformation. Julie, you're featured in the last section of the book, where we talk about the second chapter. I really consider it the first chapter, because I kind of just kick off each section, where you're talking about the resilient professional strategies for career success, and you guys are sharing your story. So what I want to do is I want to kick it back to Anthony, because one of the questions that I asked in the last group was this whole book and this whole project, and I feel like, Julie, you've kind of already answered the question, but I'm sure you got another story in you. And in fact, I'll share this, because this whole book really focused on getting people and equipping people with the tools to elevate their mindset, elevate their transform their career. Right. And they're not only hearing the real stories that you share, but like specifically like in Anthony's chapter, you literally had, like you said, exercises in there for them to do. And I think one of the unique things that we've added to this book is that after each of the chapters, we purposely put those reflective questions in there. Basically, and if you get the paperback on April 30th, we put it in there as kind of a journal format. So at the end of each chapter, you'll have some time to reflect. So what we're telling people is, don't just like read the book in a day, right? take some time, read maybe a chapter, go a couple days, work some of the reflection exercises, really take in what these folks are saying and trying to share with you. Because as a career coach, one of the things that I'm always going to do is like, do you have a career plan? Do you know your purpose? But there's some practical everyday things that you're going to need to survive in your career. That's emotional intelligence. That is resiliency. Those two go together hand in hand. So the question I have for you guys is, and I want each of us to kind of share a story about tell me a story about something that helped you to elevate in your career and started the process of transformation for you. Earlier, I just shared about, my failure when I thought that my career was headed. I mean, everybody who knows me, if you know me, you thought that I was going to have a career working in higher education. That is literally how I mapped it out, right? All the way to a deanship to a college presidency. And when I didn't even I got about halfway to that goal, right? And then suddenly it took a turn. And here I am. I used to go, man, how am I going to use this degree in human resources that I got? Well, here I am now with a whole career coaching business. So you got to be open to what the universe has for you. And these stories that we're sharing, they're not just about transforming in a moment, right? These stories are just people sharing about something that happened to them at a point in life. Because there are many moments where you have to pick yourself up to elevate your mindset, elevate your career. Anthony, tell us a quick story about maybe a failure or success, something that you had to do, a pivot point, which I think a lot of people are in that transition phase right now, pivot point, where you had to pick yourself up and elevate your mindset so that you can transform your career or get to the next level. Something, to help you to listening to our listeners that'll help them to understand that this is just part of the everyday human experience.
Well, you know what? As you were just saying that, one of the stories, and I still tell it today because it was a good point. I was working for State Department. I was a contractor for State Department, and doing cybersecurity and doing a couple other things, and I was training the people at the embassies, the RSOs, the regional security officers. And I had to build security racks with the cameras, the smoke detectors, everything that goes inside of the embassies. Well, there's this thing that's called a schematic. I'm not an electrician. And my partner is. He said, well, Anthony, you're getting paid the same that I'm getting paid, so you have to learn it. I opened the schematic up, looked at the diagram. It had all these wires, and I start freaking out. I went to my supervisor and said, I'm going home for the day. Is that where it is? Right. I'm going home for the day. And I went home, relaxed my nerves, and by the time I came back, I was ready to go. And within 3 months, I wired everything. I get everything running up smoothly. And I just had to talk myself out of, I can't do it. I learned how to do it, not for the sake of my job, but for the sake of me. And so a lot of people talk themselves out of things. I talk myself into it.
You did, right? If my sister's listening in, I just want to tell you guys a story on January 16th, 2016. Sending my sister a letter at 2 or 3 in the morning because we was both having a difficult time on our job. Sending her a note, an email, which I still got somewhere, and said in 6 months. No, it was 5 o'clock in the morning. I said I'm headed to MEPS, and you know what MEPS is. In 6 months, it's gonna be different. You know what I was doing? Going back to the military. And when I tell you, she was having a difficult time in her job, I was having a difficult time in my job, and I was like, I don't know what to do except for to go back to what I know. And that was me joining the military again. I re-enlisted on January 16th, 2016, with the hopes of I was going to retire as a master sergeant eventually. Reported to the base in March of 2016. Got there, they said, hey, we're having an officer board. By June, I was on my way. I had been offered a commission to become a military officer. And that was not what I was expecting when I showed up. Sometimes it's just, being open to what, to what the universe has for you in that next level of transition. What about you? And I do see that Natalie has come. So Natalie, when you show back up on the camera, we will add you to the stage. What about you, Julie? Tell us about a time when you had to make that, you had to take a step to elevate your mindset to transform your career, get to that next level.
So it would definitely be when I started my LLC. I had a counseling background. I'd been in the field for a lot of years, but the whole idea of coaching, was brand new to me. And so I had to entrepreneurship, all of that, build that from scratch. So I have a solid appreciation for companies that have all that intact, because when we build it from scratch, it's very different, right? So building my LLC. But then I had someone say to me, well, coaching is really the trifecta. It's writing and it's speaking. And as Anthony said, I was like, my brain shut down. I'm done. I can't do any of that. Although I have always loved writing. So I tapped into that resiliency. And so now I'm on my third collaboration. The other one will be done in June. I'm a co-author with Les Brown, With Yourself. And then I have another collaboration coming out in June. Thank God it's Monday. And this is I'm on to my second virtual summit speaking. Not because, Dr. Christie and listeners, I'm any different or I'm any more special than anybody listening, any other author. Only because I have been able to tap into resiliency. I've had a crash course in it. I've had a lifetime of personal development, and this is who I've become, and it's what I've needed to do. So I'm here to say it's not easy, but everybody can elevate their mind when they make a decision and they tap into the elevation of their mind and the resiliency and the courage to move forward.
Right. Well, listen, I'm going to go ahead and add Natalie to the stage. I want you to stay on, Julie, because you jumped in here early with us, and I'm so grateful for that, because remember, this whole thing is just for us to jump in. I'm going to add in Natalie Solomon,
Sure.
Have Natalie to introduce herself. She's also one of the co-authors of the book. And Natalie, I grabbed you, begged you. I even changed the name of the chapter you wrote, because I said, oh, no. That is your signature. I can't just take that and put that in the book with, your signature speech. I got to have a different name. Let me just enhance it a little bit. Natalie did a talk, Secure Your Oxygen Mask First. That's what she calls a chapter. And she's part of section 3 in the book. Let me allow Natalie to introduce herself, talk a little bit about your chapter, what inspired you. And we're gonna keep the conversation going. I hope some other people are able to join us, but if not, hey, we're gonna keep the conversation going, and we're gonna get prepped for this weekend and celebrate. So let's keep it going. So now, tell us a little bit about yourself, what inspired you, and about your chapter.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Natalie Solomon. I'm really honored to be a contributor for Prescription for Career Success 2025. This has been a wonderful opportunity, Dr. Taylor. But just something for the listeners, to start out. When was the last time you put yourself first without guilt? That's kind of the crux of why I said the Secure Your Oxygen Mask First. You look at everyone that is trying to take care of themselves and do work, and what does that look like? It can lead to, once you figure out, have you taken care of yourself? Have you looked at it in such a way that you don't feel guilty? Because it's both a message and a mission. I look at how we stand up and show up for other people, because a lot of us forget that self-care is not a luxury. It's a necessity, it's a strategy, and it's a leadership skill. So in this chapter, I really looked at how my particular health crisis, there's multiple, that I had to deal with, trying to overwork myself, working 90 hours a week, driving myself to the hospital, being in the ER and getting a call from a recruiter saying, hey, we finally got your application. Would you like to come in? And I was like, I'm in the ER right now, but can I call back tomorrow? And the lady was like, I'm sorry. I said, just don't give the job away. I was waiting for a long time to get the job. And I sat in the emergency room while I was having chest pains and a panic attack. And I was like, what am I doing? I said, this doesn't make any sense. I'm making myself sick, trying to succeed and, raise my hand for all the positions. And I was a scholar I had just finished a scholar program in the government where I still work now. And I was just overexerting myself, and it was thankless. And I said, I can't keep doing this. So a number of other healthcare challenges followed me, from my stage 4 endometriosis, infertility, and then eventually during COVID, right before COVID, I got diagnosed with a brain tumor. So I really had to take a beat and slow down, and I couldn't pour into anything else. I really had to stop. I had to stop working after, almost a year. I had to stop work. But you really have to think about, what are you doing to take care of yourself to show up? Because this is all well and good, all the things that we do. During the day, I'm a public health analyst, and I also have my own company, and that's a lifestyle brand. And I really stopped to look at what we show up in, the mode that we show up in every day, and the way we pour into everybody else. What is left for us, right? It really should be what we give to everybody should be what's left in the saucer from that overflow, not while we're still pouring the cup of whatever it is that we're pouring it with. We need to make sure that whatever is that overflow, that we have made sure that we're good where we are, and we stand up and show up for ourselves first. Because like in the airplane, if you put your mask on somebody else while you trying to get them situated, you're going to pass out before you get the mask on them. So where does that leave you? So you really have to think about that. So that's kind of where I thought about my thought process for the chapter as an entrepreneur and working full time and building my coaching program and being pulled in 6 million different ways. I got to practice what I preach. I can't just be like, hey guys, let's just
I want to, man, look, and this is what I'm saying. This is why the power of synergy is so important when we talk about putting together projects like this, right? Nobody's story is alike. Because I have a story of, from me being in the military to, what it was like. Oh my God, thinking that I always tell people like I was such an idiot when I was in my 20s. I remember, just for active duty telling, I had my master's degree, and my best friend, I was like, hey, we're going to be rich. Now we both 24 years old. And if God knows, if you have been stationed at Shepherd Air Force Base in Wichita Falls, you know that is such a little bitty town. I remember getting out thinking I was going to be so rich, and within 2 to 3 weeks, I think it was 3 weeks, I was back at the base busting tables. Now, imagine you done told all these people you about to get out the military. You're going, hey, I'm about to do all of this. I'm going to be rich. I was back at the base, and of all places to have to bust tables at the annual awards banquet. And people was just looking at me like, I thought she got out. You can hear them. I thought she was going to be rich. You know what I mean? So, like, we all have those career transition experience. Listen, I want to introduce, because we have some fantastic, we had people, just such the diversity of folks who have contributed to this book and all of these experiences. I want to introduce my instant internet friend, Heidi Derrick. Did I say that right, Heidi? The last name, do I always get it wrong?
You got it. You got it. Thank you.
Heidi is the founder of Heidi's Advent Living. And, we have had an opportunity to collaborate and connect. She's also going to be involved with this weekend's event. You too, Natalie. Both of y'all are speaking at this weekend's event, right? But Julie collaborated with us on this project, but all of us as authors, we're going to continue to collaborate because we have this event. Then we're going to be doing the podcast. A couple of you, like I said, Heidi and Natalie are going to be speaking at this weekend's summit. Heidi, you got first of all, I love the fact that y'all are jumping in here early because y'all know this is a drop-in event. So for me, it's kind of like whoever show up, that's who we're doing. We decided to do this last minute. So grateful for you guys. Heidi, you did chapter 17, Mindset in Motion, a journey of look at it's all tying back together. Resilience, reinvention, and purpose. You guys are gonna flash it again. We did this book from end to end. We published the book. It became a #1 bestseller in pre-sale. The book is out officially. The paperback will be out on April 30th. We are so excited. Nice. Heidi, tell us about your business, what inspired you to write your chapter. And then I'm going to kick it back to Julie after, and then we're going to, because Julie, you already shared your story of elevate your mindset and elevate your career. But I'm going to ask you a question, but I still got to hear stories from you, Natalie, and Heidi about, points. So I'm going to tell us about what inspired your chapter, Heidi, and then we're going to just kind of do a little bit of story sharing.
Well, my life has been a lot of overcoming. I grew up, this is off, not from the book, but I grew up, I had a speech impediment. And yet I have, worked really hard. I did speech therapy for years and years. I remember teaching And my students, they liked my little speech impediment because they'd make fun of me. They're like, say it again, Mrs. Dirk, say it again. And I'm like, just, but, but you know what? The thing is, I was able to overcome that. I have been on stages where I've, in the classroom, of course, but then also, you're talking 100 plus adults that I presented to at various conferences, in services. I've, in the high school and middle school, I won state and national and went on to national competitions despite my speech impediment. And so I figure, if I can do that, then anybody could.
So tell us a little bit
And
about. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
what? And then is that better? There we go.
Yeah. I was totally.
Yeah. Sorry. So I had that, and then I became a mom at 20, and so I had just always had this having to overcome something. And then I was driving 220 miles, like I said in the book, and I pursued my bachelor's with math and science and computers, and then I went on to get my master's after having, 3 children and teaching full time. And then I realized this really wasn't what I wanted. And I believed in myself enough to step out of what I had known for 20 plus years and step out in faith. And here I am now, starting fresh. And
Listen.
this past couple of years has been a couple of really big changes to boot. So not only did I step out of a career that I had known for over 20 plus years and been successful, I also was divorced. My children have been, leaving the nest. And I had the first 2 that left several years ago. And then my son left a couple of years ago. And my youngest now is a senior. And so here I am in the midst of all this. And, I gotta keep going. You just have this mindset of, I will not let anything slow me down. I will not let anything prevent me from doing what I want to do, and what ultimately the important thing is God wants me to do.
That's important. Whatever our faith walk is, I love that. What I love is the realness of the stories, right? None of us are coming in here sitting in this room tonight saying, I can go, yes, my name is Dr. Krista Taylor. I've taught on the campus of Yale University. Yes. And I have also been broke. I remember when in 27, I want to tell you guys what inspired this whole prescription thing. In 2017, so there was a career transition there in 2016, right? But in 2017, I went broke. I was in a career transition, went broke, had to get a job at CVS, got a job at CVS as a pharmacy tech. That is what a prescription for career success came from. Wow. Got a job at CVS as a pharmacy tech, got a pharmacy tech license, right? I only worked there 3-4 months because remember when I told you in the last part, I had this commission, had to go to officer training school. So I only worked there for like 3 months. But it was the experience that I had there that I took it, rewrote my resume, and when I left Florida in 2020, came up to work for the FDA because I already had a doctorate in health science. I was like, well, hey, I was a pharmacy tech. I, have worked with pharmacists before. My whole background is health science. Got a job making $35,000 more than what I was making as an educator because I took that, wrote the right resume, took that experience of when I tell you it was so bad, during them days where I had to go and work that second job, the first day there, I was the only person that showed up to work with the manager. He had me on the kitchen, and the same night, but one of my tires went off. I'm like, Lord, it cannot absolutely get any worse, right? But I moved here in 2020. It was that little 3 or 4 license that allowed me to come up and take my background in education and work for the FDA as a project manager for some pharmacists. and I literally took that whole prescription thing. Fast forward, here we are. That's where it came from, y'all. So, if you want to know about taking lemons and making lemonade, Julie, I want to, hand this off to you. We have some more folks coming in, but I want you to talk about you know, share. Let me add Erica because I see her in the queue, and we'll talk about how I met Erica in just a moment. Because Erica, I barely would even say Erica. I know your last name. We gonna come with that, right? Let me get Julie to chime in and just kind of tell us, you know, something that really inspires you. Then we're gonna circle back to those stories and what motivates you because you know you shared a little bit about your story of that hardship of what about becoming resilient, but tell us a little bit about something that motivates you to keep going.
Wow, there's a lot that motivates me, Dr. Taylor. I just think it's always been in the space of personal development. I'm a big fan of many of the leaders like Tony Robbins, Les Brown. When I first met you online, I'm like, oh my gosh, Dr. Christy Taylor is someone I want to know because we need to keep ourselves in the space of learning, growing, and morphing. And so that's one piece. The other is I love what I do. And if I can serve, I love serving. And if I can help just one woman lessen their pain, find their purpose, find their passion, tap into their resiliency, then it was all worth it to me. So all of that keeps me going, keeps me motivated every single day.
Listen, all of you keep me inspired. And I want to jump to Erica because when I just said to Erica, I barely know your last name. I got to tell you about how this came about. This is real. Erica and I did a conference together in March. That was just March, right? We did the American
Just
University
March.
Conference.
Yep, just March. Just March.
We were sitting at the table. I just happened to walk in because I was trying to eat as much free food as possible.
And it got me sick. So I don't know how your stomach fared, but it took me out.
I was trying to eat as much free food as possible. Walked in, sat at the table. She was talking about the feedback. I guess
Use Talk It Out. I use Talk It Out to collect feedback during my events.
Yeah, I was talking about collecting feedback. Julie, if you want to jump back in, you can. But thank you. I definitely wanted to get some advice. But Julie, if you're listening, you want to jump back in, you can. Sitting at the table, we were talking about how to collect feedback for your events, right?
Mm-hmm.
For events, you was telling me something. And I was telling you about this project that we're doing, a prescription for career success. And somehow you started talking about you want to write a book, and I said, "Oh, you can be on my book." That's literally what happened.
Sign me up. She said, "Can you get it in by Sunday at 5?" I was like, "No problem."
Literally, you can be on my book. So we did this, and boom, you sent in a chapter,
mm-hmm.
and here we are. I mean,
and
so that was really less than a month ago that we did that conference,
yep.
right? So
Yep.
I'm going to circle back to you. Let me have her tell her story, and then I'm going to circle back to you guys because the next question I want you to be thinking about that I think Natalie, I did get to ask you, or I don't think I asked either one of you. The next question is what I just kind of asked in terms of you telling a story of how you had to elevate your mind to transform your career.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So Erica, I want you to introduce yourself to the audience. Tell us about your chapter. Erica, you are Bridges Connecting who you are to what leader you're meant to be. And I see the big stuff you're doing again, barely knowing your last name, just mentioned last month. Mm-hmm. Y'all, do you want to write a book? All right. And bring her on. Heidi, same thing. We haven't met. Heidi's going to be doing some work with the CRN network that I'm building. So it's just about creating synergy amongst great people. So tell us a little about what inspired your chapter, Erica, and some of the work that you do.
Well, what's inspired my chapter is, I'm a licensed engineer. And so a good portion of my life, I was like, oh, I want to be an engineer. I want to be an engineer. And then after I got my license, I was like, now what? Now what? How do I take this thing that I'm really passionate about and continue to let it evolve? And I became a manager, and learning how to run a program is similar to building a bridge. You got to start from the bottom. You got to, have good foundation. You need to have the right materials. You need to put them together and explore your connections appropriately. Transfer the stress. You don't need to be out here by yourself doing it all. And so that was also how I began to grow as a leader as well. It's like, if I am here doing all the work, what's the rest of these people out here doing? Oh, well, we all need to be working together. So, when you talk about, building bridges and using your strengths, that was really how I've always been able to transform myself from a worker to a leader to leading impact across organizations and helping people understand, what do you do well? Like, everybody's not meant to be, if we're talking about a bridge, everybody's not meant to be a handrail. Some people supposed to be, you know, a piece of tread. Somebody's supposed to be a foundation. Somebody's supposed to be a girder. Every piece has a place and a part. And if you can't find a place and a part for your team, then you're not reaching your full potential, as we talk about a lot in the workplace. You're leaving, you have untapped resources that are going to waste or withering and dying. Or, you know, people get to cutting up in the workplace, right? They don't have nothing constructive to do. They end up, you know, making up something else on their own, and it may not be what you want them to do. And so for me, it was always about how do you gather the resources and understand how they best could be used. I do that as a strengths coach. I do that with executive coaching and consulting. I do that with my teams that I lead and that I hire. You're looking like, what does my team need? What am I missing? My first promotion actually came that way. I was like, hey, I'm good at this, this, and this. So if they're going to feel behind, I want them to hire somebody that doesn't have the same strengths that I do, that we'll have a, you know, a whole team together. And they like, hey, you got the job. And I was like, who, me? I didn't like want the job. I just wanted our team to be, you know, well-rounded. And that's basically how I began leading and moving along in my career.
So when we talk about this book, guys, and we're talking about taking you from end to end, like I said, we started the book with, you know, it's structured in a way. So we're talking about self-development, the power of mindset, and that's embedded throughout the whole book. But because we're dealing with these 3 sections and we've kind of put it up, you know, put these various themes together, we're taking you through the process of really what it's going to take to lead people. But as Colonel Lawrence said in the beginning, the first thing you got to do is know how to lead yourself. I think
lead self,
you know,
lead others, and lead change. That's how it works.
Earl said that, if I'm not mistaken, Earl said that in the beginning, right? You got to know how to lead yourself. And so many times we get this mindset. Julie, let me check in with you because you've been on with me. Do you want to stay on? Are you able to stay on to the end? Okay, all right. Because I was like, you came in, you stepped in early, and I appreciate that. So, you know, so what we've been doing is we're hearing these stories. And so I want to, Natalie, I can't remember if I asked you, but what I'm asking people to do is just share a real life little quick story. So we're going to go to each of Natalie, Heidi, and then Erica of just outside of the context of the chapter that you shared, share a real life story of something where you had to really elevate your mindset to transform your career and get yourself on the next path. Because what I want people to see that in this transition process is that it doesn't, first of all, you don't exist in a monolith. Everybody going through it, 7 billion of us, right? Hey, I think in the past 30 minutes, I've told 86 stories of how my life burnt down 22 times. Okay, shoot, we started to launch this event. Y'all know what happened when we came to that first meeting. And I said, hey, we're about to launch this event. I was like, here I am, just lost my job. Oh my God. And I still got to do everything I said I was going to do for you. You know what I mean? But God has been wonderful. God has been wonderful. Erica, we a complete stranger. We met last month, 30 days ago was it today? I think it was a little bit.
Oh, last week, 30 days ago, last week. 30
days ago last week. Ain't even never talked on the phone. You just submitted a chapter. Now we are your best-selling, #1 best-selling author. I mean, that to me is just what the power of synergy is. It's important to be able to connect with people. Natalie, tell us your story. Tell us your story of something you had to elevate to transform your mindset, transform your career.
So, you know, I had mentioned earlier about my illnesses and healthcare challenges. There was a point where I really needed to figure out how am I going to deal with that. Mentally, it was a lot. I was in and out the hospital several times, and I needed a place to like decompress and cry and vent and be like, why God, why is this happening? So I ended up creating a sacred space for myself, like a she shed in my room, in the basement. And initially it was just a blank room with like a container, a clear container, and I put a blanket over it and put it like a little prayer space for myself. And I didn't have anything in there. I just needed some space to decompress and realize I'm like, well, what does all these health illnesses, health challenges mean? How am I going to have to navigate this moving forward? I'd done wellness workshops and meditation and stuff like that with my girlfriends. And a girlfriend of mine, eventually, as time went on, I started putting furniture in there, and I made each wall of my room its own vision board. So by seeing that, my girlfriend came in my room and she was like, girl, you know, people will pay you for this. I was like, what? I really didn't think about it. She's like, girl, you're in public health and you talk about wellness. Combine those two, you know, and think about how your environment impacts how you see things. It impacts how you move forward, and it impacts if you receive what it is that's being put in front of you. And I was like, oh, well, I could do the sacred space thing. And it really looked into creating that sacred space for myself and others. And then when I had my brain surgery, I didn't know if my brain was going to work right the way I needed it to. So I ended up having to pivot and go to school for becoming an accredited event designer, professional event florist. And I combined those two skill sets in case I needed to pivot and figure out how else am I going to build my career if my brain doesn't work right after, once I'm healed from my brain surgery. So I had to combine those and realize, talking to women and creating and holding space for them, they were like, I just want a place to have some zen. Even if I don't do anything, I just want to be somewhere nice so I can decompress, take off my cape, and then focus on me so that I can be ready for that next position, opportunity that may come forth. Or just do nothing and just lay there, which is always great. I highly encourage that.
I think you prepare yourself for a career pivot. Hey, we've been talking as a career coach, especially. I've been talking a lot about career pivots. Again, going through it. I prepared for a year of beauty pageants and traveling. And I showed up to that first day. I was like, I ain't got no job. You know what I mean? And having to make a mindset pivot in the middle of me throwing an event about myself. So the thing about it is, guys, there's nobody here that's going to be, as a part of this book, that is speaking at this conference that hasn't lived. This is why I want you to see the humanness of these individuals who wrote this book, who are sharing their stories, who are going to be speaking at that conference this weekend. Heidi, tell us about you. Tell us about a moment. I feel like your story was so powerful because you're a mom, you're a teacher. You talked about, having a disability. You had to pivot from overcome. I'm not even going to say, work through all of this. You have dealt with so much transition. But tell us another story about transition, right? But I just feel like, so much for moms who feel like I can't do this. Absolutely, you can, right? You're on mute.
Sorry. The other thing I've dealt with is I'm ADHD. I knew, having been in education for over 20 plus years, I knew I had always been. Even before in grade school, I knew I was. And I finally got the diagnosis after going to counseling and with my divorce and everything. And because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going crazy. Well, guess what else I'm dealing with? Perimenopause. And it's just exasperated. The hormones have just totally, and just throw it all. Yeah, you gotta come. But and that's one thing I think with teaching and everything, I had to work harder to overcome to do the job that I needed to do. But I also had that empathy for the students and the other people that were dealing with the same things.
And I think you talk about that in your chapter too, talking about ADHD. You share a lot of your story. What I just love the humanness. Like, somebody might be sitting there today, like I say, somebody might be sitting there today, a mom, or you're saying, and I love how you was like, well, I went to school for math and I studied science, and then I said, I don't want none of this. You know what I mean? And so you can always make a pivot or a transition,
Yes. Yeah. It's never too late.
It is. And I especially want to, for right now, and you're having to make that career transition, listen, don't get stuck in your emotions, right? Yes. I know you dedicated your life to this, you committed to this, you weren't expecting it, but if you go out into the private sector, guess what? It's happening to them every day too, right? And so you got to kind of embrace it. What I hated that this has happened, but what I have loved is seeing people. It's like a ton of people popping up on YouTube. That's like, one lady was like, well, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna travel for the rest of it. She said she was gonna travel. Then the next thing you know, she getting a call for a job interview. The next day I said, well, God had other plans. All right. So you just never know. But seeing people you don't know what is next for you in terms of the doors that might be opening. Erica, tell us your story. And then we're going to do one last around the room because I got to have everybody tell us that prescription for career success. Tell us your story of elevating your mindset and transforming your career. And again, this, Erica, you might not have heard this part because you just joined us. We got everybody probably has 1,000 of these stories. There's no
Oh,
right.
yeah.
You have one.
Right. I'm like, which one? Which one? Which
right,
one?
because I'm
Which
like,
one?
when I was in that CVS parking lot with the broke tab, like, look, it can't get no worse. Jesus.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, mine was feeling that way too. I was like, man, I've been in this job, I've been doing all the things, and I just need a break. I need a break. And so I put in for another position. I was like, yeah, I didn't hear anything. I said, I guess they went with somebody else, whatever. I get an email. Can you interview tomorrow morning at 8:00? And here are the 3 questions we're going to ask you. And you only have 30 minutes and you'll be, graded on how you manage your time. I was like, okay. So I wrote up a bunch of stuff and I was like, that's not going to work because that's not 30 minutes. Right. And then I think something happened at my regular job that I had to get addressed. Came back, started the interview. It was 10 minutes late. I was like, oh, but I have all these things I need to say to the people. And I was like, you know what? I know who I am and I know what I do. That's what I'm going to talk about. And I just, went from the hip that way. I was like, I just got 3 things I want you to say. And, I finished. And they were like, well, you can keep going because you got an extra 10 minutes. I said, no, you said that I need to be done. And so I felt like showing up in that space without being all like polished and, with your sticky notes behind the camera and, all your talking points, just showing up and being myself. And it was a job not in engineering. It was a job as like change management person for an organization that was shifting, moving budget over here, moving, human resources over there, working with chief of staff. It was completely out of my bailiwick, but my ability to look at systems, create systems, build relationships, and make it do what it do, right? Like if it hard is not impossible, right? Like, oh, this, there was no like playbook. Hey, Erica, these are the things we want you to do. And this is what, no, it was none of that. It was like, oh yeah, go on in there. Okay. And it was just like the interview. The interview was, you came in with one thing, you end up with less resources, less time, less, whatever. And I'm just a naturally personable person. So like just talking and like, hey, what are y'all doing? Let's just check it out. And this, and I can talk fast. And I did all of that, right? Like just how do we slow down, make sure they understand what you're saying, reiterate it, start with what's most important. Don't bury the lead. The most important thing is that you get the right person for this job. And if that's me, I'm available. And if it's not, good luck. Let's keep on going, but this is why I feel like I'm the best person for this job. And, when you're not reading from a script, it just lands a lot differently. It lands, it resonates. When you're speaking from your heart, you connect with other people from their heart. So I feel like that was just a time where, all the planning that I like to do as an engineer was like, yeah, this is not what this is about, boo. Step up or step out of the way. And they called.
And that interview hit you like life, didn't it?
It did. I was like, can one more thing? Like nobody's ready to leave for the bus stop. Car on the way to work. All the stuff going on. Do y'all know I got an interview in 10 minutes? Okay, 7 minutes. All right, 5 minutes. Just let me get in here and sit down and then have to wait for 10 minutes because they're waiting on somebody to join the interview. And I was like, okay, can't say that. Stay present. Hey, chit chat, just talking them up and, building rapport, which you don't often get to do that in an interview. You get to come in there and go like, are you good enough? Yes, please pick me. Look, you got want somebody, go for that. If you want this, I'm here, And let me tell
sometimes
you.
Sometimes it's just great to be able to be. So guys, we're going to transition. We got about 10 minutes left. So I'm going to do it around the room. I'm going to start with Julie. And I just want to say, I'm going to say it again at the end. I'm going to say it again at the end. I said it in the book. I'm going to say it 20 more times. Thank you, guys. Because I'm telling you, God did this. It could have been when we came to that first meeting in January, I could have been like, okay, I just lost my own job and I'm a career coach. I don't even know what I'm going to do. You know what I'm saying? But I can't tell people I'm not going to say that I didn't experience emotions, right? But what I understood was that I was the first of many to come. And the experience that I was having was not unique. It just, when you're in those moments, I had some great people checking in with me and checking on me. And this was a time for me to step up and lead because I had promised you this and we went through with it. We have over 100 people registered for the conference on Saturday. We have, it's just been phenomenal. The amount of feedback and support in the positive work that's being done to support other people. Guys, this is us stepping out on faith. Me stepping out on faith with my business partner, Jules, who I always have to give props to, who has managed the stuff even when, I can't even get to it, right? So she has it during the day, but we have pushed through this thing and we have gotten here And did it take a bunch of fancy equipment? No, it took a nice Zoom equipment, a nice set of Zoom, a StreamYard. We started with what we got. We used what we have. We have over 100 people coming to this conference, and we got some phenomenal speakers. And so you can really, just through faith, if God is giving you a vision for something, I mean, I would be crazy. Y'all know who I am. I would be crazy not to honor God. If you honor the universe, you can. So, the universe, whoever, but for me, it's God. I'm just so thankful to have the opportunity to have collaborated with you guys. So with that being said, I want you to go around the room. I want you to share with us some advice in 60 seconds or less. Give us some advice for the prescription or career success. We got about 2 minutes each, right? So advice for your prescription for career success. Also, tell us what you got coming up next, okay? I'm going to start with Julie.
Okay, thank you. And my tip really includes you, Dr. Taylor, because at that time in January, I saw you stacking the good. Not that there wasn't some emotional baggage along the way, but you kept going, and you and Jules kept stacking the good on this event and the summit, and you kept moving forward regardless. And I'm going to give a little hint here to the ending of my chapter, and it's called Stacking Resiliency, because resiliency in our professional life, it demands a commitment to never give up in the face of adversity. So the more we can stack the good, the further we will get in our life and our career. Not that doesn't mean we're not going to have some emotional baggage along the way. So thank you for modeling stacking the good, Dr. Christy Taylor. And what I have going on is my one-to-one life coaching, which I'm focusing on, but I'm very excited, book collaborations and master classes that I'm creating.
Thank you so much, Julie. You have been phenomenal. I mean, I'm still shocked and odd that we just started this project. The book wasn't even supposed to be part of the conference. I just think I said right before I lost my, so we're gonna do a book. Like, y'all want to do this book? And we literally became #1 bestseller authors. I just want to thank God for that. Natalie, what about you? Tell us your prescription for career success. Tell us what you got coming up next, besides speaking at the conference this weekend.
Right. So I would say as we're looking ahead for securing your oxygen mask first, some of the framework that I look to is we have to breathe, we have to balance, and we have to bloom where we're planted. It is so important to really take stock of where you are and just pause, take a breath. It's so important to understand that you matter in that regard. And it's okay if you're not okay to take a beat and relax so that you can gather yourself together and start again, because you're not going to be any good if you're burnt out to anybody, especially yourself. So it's so important to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. I talk about it all the time at work. I'm known as the self-care lady at work. I ask all my recipients, and check in with them and making sure that you're where your headspace, you are your own sacred space first. And you need to nurture that and curate that and make sure that you are in a space to really envelop who that is for yourself. And that takes time, but give yourself grace. As far as what's coming up for me, I am preparing for my TED Talk in the fall. I am getting ready for we're getting ready to start practicing and all that good stuff. So I'm trying my pitch, which was on securing your oxygen mask first in the light of global democracy. And so we take that 3-minute pitch to 10 minutes and working on that. I'm also working on 2 coaching programs in the vein of women's wellness and mental health, as well as taking care of yourself as an entrepreneur and what you need to do to pour into yourself so you can show up for your business and those around you. So thanks.
Love that. You are goals, girl. I mean, we got the books. We already become #1 bestseller authors, but I got to get me a TED Talk or something.
Yeah.
All right.
I gotta write another book. I'm ready to write another book, yo. Take that chapter and pick a whole book out of it.
Yep.
Look, I'm working on that now. That's my next drop. Heidi, tell us your prescription for career success. Listen, and I have to say this. I didn't hear you talk about your pillars that you found Heidi's Advent living on. I didn't hear you mention those, yes. But she got some hot stuff going on in this book and what it really inspires her.
Well, I think with everything going on, we need to not discount our feelings. We need to definitely, feel our feelings. You lose your job, whatever happens, feel your feelings, but you got to move on from that. You have to have in the 4 foundations of Heidi's Advent Living, is, as the name indicates, the Christmas season of Advent. Foundation is hope, peace, joy, and love. I feel like if we have those four things at the forefront of our minds and our lives, then everything else is going to fall into place. And it's the emotional component, but also the physical component, spiritual. It's the whole. That's why I have a holistic approach to my coaching. You cannot ignore, one facet of your life while trying to focus on, oh, I got to get that job. I got to do this. I got to do that. It's like, no, you got to have a balanced life. And we cannot exist without balancing all of us, mind, body, and spirit. And I'm doing the one. Thank you. One-on-one coaching, and I'm working on program. I'm also a fitness instructor, and I'm also working on some classes with that. So I've got a kids camp that I'm doing this summer at the gym, and I'm trying to expand and do some programs there with the gym. So I've got a lot going on as well.
You got a lot going on. How did you literally almost just have me on the verge of tears? Like, I just think it's just so powerful to just meet people and just make that connection, right? Again, all of them, it's all of the people that you see here at some point, whether they're on the Work Global News platform because we've done an interview, or, Erica, I don't think we got a chance to do an interview, but they will be coming through the Prescription for Career Success podcast this summer. Like I said, it's a 10-minute podcast. It's like I'm popping on right now. I'm in the middle of the Career Pivot 21-day pivot, but 21-day challenge. I'm on day 5. Lord, I know that I need to pop on and finish the days, right? And telling people advice, but it's you guys are so powerful. Like, I'm listening to you and I'm literally like on the verge of tears because you have so much going on. You have spoken so much life into other people, and I'm inspired by that. And so, Erica, tell us your prescription for career success, piece of advice you want to give people, and what you got going on. Make sure you plug that podcast that I see popping up.
Oh, yes, definitely. So what I would say, the name of my company is Exhale Consulting, and my motto is exhale, inhale, transform. Let go of the things that are no longer serving you. Grab your strengths, pull yourself together by your whole name, right? All the middle names and last names as well, and then transform. Leadership starts with yourself, it moves to others, and it grows into change. So how do you continue to do that? I've been partnering with organizations to develop talent and build healthy relationships and engineer innovation. What that looks like is that I just celebrated my 5 years in business. Exhale Consulting, April 2020 was when I decided it was a great idea to start a business, right? And then next month, I'll be finishing up my first year as a nationally syndicated radio host, celebrating 1 year with WDRB Media on the show Validity with Erica. So y'all have to join me sometime and have a good conversation. We're here for a fun time, not a long time. So how do we continue to grow and learn from one another? That's what I really have going on. And then also, just continuing to get out and speak and show up in places and spaces and volunteer and, relax and take a trip with my husband next month. So he's the best.
Guys, this has been fantastic. I want to say thank you again for Julie, because for a minute there I was just floating. I was like, well, who coming in there? Julie showed up and popped in. And it's us creating synergy like we've done, and pushing through and sharing these real stories like we have in the book. This Prescription for Career Success, Volume 1, we came in as strangers, walked away as #1 best-selling authors, colleagues, friends, who will continue to build connections. We have an awesome weekend coming. This is just year 1 of the Prescription for Career Success. That all started because I was broke and had to get a job at CVS, and my tie went on flat. And I said, Lord, why, what's next? That was in 2017, and here we are today. All right. And I'm going to end on that note. Guys, we're going to drop, the book is for sale. Paperback out yesterday, already #1 best-selling book. The ebook came out yesterday, already #1 best-selling book. Paperback will be out on April 30th. I want to thank all 15 of the contributing authors, those who were able to make it tonight. It took every single chapter in that book for us to become #1. Paperback goes on sale April 30th. We're also going to drop, if you are tuning in and you want to register for the summit, is absolutely free. The quality of speakers that we have and engagement that we have, we ain't gonna be up there pitching. Of course, we want to connect with you, but we have some real things happening at that conference on Saturday and Sunday. It is so real that we have myself, we have another young lady who's going to be serving as, we're going to be the resident career coaches for those that are in attendance between the speakers. We're going to be doing hot seats to make sure that we prep people to make that career pivot, to make it to the next level in their career. We know a lot is going on here in DC, so we have a lot of people registered here in this area, right? But we're going to be here championing you. You know, you ain't talking to somebody who ain't been through it, ain't going through it. So you know that, and you heard all of these stories from real people with real experiences. We want to thank you for tuning in tonight. Thank you for celebrating our book launch with us. Thank you for making us #1 best-selling authors. Thank you just for being a part of this experience and watching us grow. And so good night to everybody. Get your tickets registered for this weekend, and we will see you on Saturday. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you.